canceled. One of them canceled yesterday. The reason we wanted the financial advisor, the banker, the lawyer, these are the people that are gonna assist you and advise you on keeping you on the right path when you have your business. So, we do it in different ways, but also we are part of your team that has to work, well, that should work together and collaborate for you, to put you in the best situation to succeed. It should be the type of relationship to where if one of us, if you ask us a question about something, and we can't do it, we should be directing you to people that can. And we shouldn't try to take it upon ourselves to do stuff that we know is out of our purview. So as we know, finance is a big field, very big field, and it covers a lot of stuff. So I just want to do a short introduction at first, just kind of give you guys a feel, but mostly since finance and accounting are big fields, we're just going to leave it to Q&A. You guys can ask your questions and we'll do it the best we can to answer them today. If we can't, we'll get in contact with you later to answer those questions. So Victor, did you want to go first or John?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind. Victor Cantu, MidFirst Bank. I'm a commercial lender. So I help businesses with their lending needs and banking needs. So I do a lot of financing for businesses once they've kind of had a couple of years experience and they're making money and they're ready to grow. So banks kind of come in later, usually in the business cycle. Usually don't finance a startup. So normally to start your business, it comes from either personal savings or investors, sometimes family members or other people who might own a percentage of the company. Or even in some cases may do a loan to the company. That's usually how they start. And then, like I said, after they have a couple of years in business and they're ready to grow, then they would talk to someone like me for financing. So some things I do to help first would be working capital. So there's loans and lines of credit just to kind of help the, yeah.
What is working capital?
So working capital is like the cash you need to keep the business going on a day-to-day basis. So that's to make payroll, to pay the bills, keep the lights on, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So certain businesses, maybe seasonal, meaning that certain parts of the year, they're busier and they're slower in other parts. So working capital could help to kind of fill in the gaps until it's their busy season again. It's also used to manage accounts receivable, which are work that a business has done but hasn't been paid yet. If you know, sometimes businesses might do something for the government, for instance, and they may have a contract where they'll be paid within 60 days, but the business still has to make payroll, keep the lights on, stuff like that. So that's where a line of credit or a term loan can come in handy for a business to bridge that gap from until they get the cash in, right? So cash is king in business, and Joel would attest to. Other things that help financing would be like equipment or vehicles for the business. You know, if they need to, if the business needs to expand and grow, that's where I come into play. And then real estate as well. So if a business wants to buy a building, or even an investor wants to buy a building or rent houses or whatever and rent them out, I help with the financing of that too. Other than that, I just help advise, connect business, my clients, I'm assigned to certain people, so, they contact me if they have questions or need help with their business or need connected to someone or need help with their, some way to move money to pay their vendors or to receive from their clients. I can kind of advise them on that. Direct them towards, a legal professional if they have legal issues, or a financial advisor if they're looking for investment opportunities and planning for the future, or someone like Joel if they need help with taxes and strategy and things like that. That's about it. Yeah.
All right, thank you. My name is John Lee. I am with Edward Jones. We are an investment firm, but I help with everything wealth management side for individuals and businesses. The biggest way I help businesses is telling people or the owners about the importance of having some sort of retirement benefit. And the reason why it's so important for them is one of the biggest assets or advantages for a business to keep their best workers is to have some sort of retirement benefit set up. And so I help set up, whether it's a 401k, SEP IRA, simple IRA, discussing the advantages and disadvantages of those, and then educating the employees why it's so important to put away for their retirement. And so just educating what the options are, how it works, and how to reach their financial goals. And the biggest reason why I even chose this profession is to help bridge the gap between minorities. I feel like they're just really underserved, especially in the financial world. And I wanted to bridge that gap and try to help people that look like me, think like me, have similar family values. And then one thing that helped me to get to where I'm at is most people think about their savings as, hey, I'm gonna spend what I need to spend, because everybody has some spending apparently, and then they're gonna save whatever's left over, right? But wealth building never happens like that, because your mental shift needs to save first, and then you're spending what's left over. Because we live in a society where you can't get ahead unless you're an owner. So you have to own your time, you have to own your work, you have to own your money. And so the more you just give it away after you work so hard every week to frivolous stuff, whether it's a new car, a new house, whatever, the less you're gonna keep, less you're gonna own. And so just kind of educating individuals and owners how to keep more, how to save more.
Okay, what I do is, well, I'm a CPA, so that means I'm an accountant that's certified. So essentially what I do is I take financial data, I take your financial data, and I process it so third parties can use it. So what does that mean? That means things that you do when you do business, like receipts, invoices, and payables, things of that nature. For me, that's financial data. When you write a check, that's financial data. So I have to take all that and basically put it in a format to where I can make it readable for certain entities, like banks. So I have to take your profit and make a profit and loss for you, create that profit and loss, and I send it to Victor here, so Victor can decide whether or not he wants to give you a loan. So Victor would be the third party. So I take your information and process it, and I give it to the third party, like, I give it to the third party like Victor. Also, there's this little organization called the IRS. So I take your financial data, I put it together so we can do a tax return for you. And I send that to the IRS. So, so you can be compliant, so you can continue to stay in business and also stay a free man, right? We all, we all want that. And also, audits. Most of us won't do audits. Audits are normally for like organizations that are looking for investors or loans. They may require an audit. Most of the time they don't. Most of the time people like Victor, depending on the size of your business, they're just gonna ask for like just a small profit and loss, maybe a small balance sheet or your tax return. So given that, since you guys are small business people, and I don't care what size business you are, I've discovered that most people don't like paying taxes. So, well, I mean, it's true, right? We don't like paying them. So there's every incentive to get the tax rate, to get your tax liability as low as possible, and that's completely understandable. But if it's too low, and I go, year 3, and there's a big fat negative on your tax return, and I have to go send you to see Victor, Victor might say, you can't get this loan because you're not making any money, right? So banks normally want to make sure that you're, can pay that loan back. And so that's one of the things that small businesses have to think about, like in year 2, 3, 5, when they start making money, is like I tell all of my clients, you're gonna pay somebody, right? You're gonna pay the IRS or you're gonna deal with the banks. So let's just make sure that those financial statements and those tax returns are done properly and compliant but in a way that gives you the best advantage to where you can meet your goals, of whether it's paying the least amount of taxes while still able to get the loan. Because, because like Victor said, cash is king, and sometimes you just need it. So sometimes you have to get a loan. So like when I'm doing your taxes, if you have a business or you own a real estate property, that's something that I do have to take into consideration. Matter of fact, if I know you have a business, and first thing I do is call and say, hey, look, are you going for a loan anytime soon? Because I want to know, like, do I put this number here or there? Because if it goes there, it's going to be a big fat negative. If I put it there, it's going to be a small positive, right? So those are, but if it's a small positive, you're going to pay taxes, and you're going to have to be comfortable with that. So part of what I do is my latent function is setting expectations. I know a lot of people hear things on TV and they think it's true, like you can make billions of dollars and not pay taxes. That is absolutely not true. It just isn't. If you make money, you will pay taxes, so just expect that. Now it's my job to make sure you're paying as little taxes as possible. And if you do owe, one thing I do is I send you to people like John here, right? John's a financial advisor. I make the recommendation all the time. Hey, if you have a business and you want money, before you just go out and buy a bunch of widgets, you can write it off. Why don't you talk to my buddy John and see what type of retirement plan you can come with that's tax deductible, so that helps you for your future and your present. All right. So that is what I do in a nutshell. So I do taxes. I also do some bookkeeping, but it's very beneficial if you can afford a bookkeeper to get a bookkeeper. They don't have to be CPAs. Sometimes they can just be really experienced accountants or bookkeepers. Those people, they keep you in line and they keep everything straight for you. They're gonna have the monthly meetings with you to make sure that you know where your money's going and how it's being spent. And also they're gonna filter out the personal expenses that you have. Now I know you people in this room, you guys are good people. So you would never take personal expenses and run it through your business. That would be wrong, and you guys won't do that. Believe it or not, some people do. And sometimes they think they're getting away with something. And they are. For a while they are. Because it makes your tax liability lower when you're running like your kid's diaper through your bank account, through your financial statements, right? All supplies, right? So you think you're getting away with something. You kind of are most of the time. Sooner or later, you got to go see Vic, though. And Vic's going to want to know, like, hey, man, how come you're always in the negative? Or how come you're never making that much of a profit? You want a loan from me, but these numbers aren't looking good. So that means you got to explain to Vic that, hey, those supplies right there, those aren't real supplies. Those are my kids' diapers. Right? And he's going to look at you weird, right? Isn't he? Yeah, so those are things that you have to think about when you have a business, right? And it's also when you use your personal expenses on your business. It's also called piercing the corporate veil, right? Because your LLC, when you start one, and you can start one by yourself, or you can call one of my attorney friends, Lacey Egbert or Alexander Bliss, and they can start one for you. They can set up an operating agreement for you. They set up that LLC, it becomes a separate person. It's a separate individual with their own life, right? Like a 14th Amendment corporation, a person, not a human, but a person. Well, if you start treating that person like it's you, well, you're no longer legally protected. That's what happens when you start take that risk of running personal expenses through your business, right? So if you get sued, that LLC was supposed to protect that business. But if you treat it like a personal bank account, the judge will look at your expenses and say, that's not a separate person, that's you. Because you're running your kids' diapers through that. Obviously, that's you buying those diapers. So therefore, you and that corporation are not separate. It's just you. So that means you're liable to get sued. So not only are they just going to go after the company, they're going to go after you also. And that's the whole reason you set up the LLC, is to protect you and you from liabilities and from you from getting sued. Is any of this making sense? Am I talking too much jargon? Okay.
I actually have a question. Maybe you realize I work with people. That's just my entire job. So it's kind of like those tells when people maybe aren't telling me the full truth become like second nature. How much of your jobs is kind of lie detection or fib detection to make, to find a good candidate for a loan or someone that you would want to take on as a client? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a little give and take when it comes to how much money the business and the customer make versus how much they show.
Mm.
So there's kind of a saying in banking that you have to show to grow. Meaning that if you want to grow your business, which the reason why you would grow your business is to scale. So if say your profit margin's 10%, for every $100 you sell, you make $10. So if you sell 1,000, then that's more. If you sell 10,000, 100,000, so you might borrow money from a bank so that you can increase your sales, right? Which would increase your total profit, the difference between your revenue and your expenses. So like Joel said, you need to kind of think about more than one thing. And a lot of times businesses want to write everything off. But then they'll come to the bank and they'll say, you can tell from my bank statements, I run millions of dollars through the bank.
Mm.
But a lot of business owners don't understand there's a difference between revenue and profit.
Mm.
So if you do $1 billion in revenue, but your expenses are $1 billion, you got nothing left over,
Mm-hmm.
You can't justify taking out debt where you have a payment and you'd be going in the negative, right? So with me, or with banking in general, it doesn't matter as much what people say. We're looking at the financial documents. We're looking at tax returns, balance sheets, income statements, other information that lets us know, obviously if someone has been in business for, say, 20 years, and, they've made money, they should have some sort of assets to show for that.
Mhm.
Like they bought houses, or they have investments, or whatever, so that helps as well. So if someone says, I make millions of dollars, but they have a net worth, which is the difference of their personal assets and their personal liabilities, of zero, it means either they haven't made that much money, or they've blown it, which
Also is not good.
also is not good. So you can kind of like tell the truth by looking at their financial documents.
Heard. Okay.
So that's kind of, I guess, the long answer to a short question. It doesn't matter if they're lying. I have to look at the data that's in its objective for customer, because we can't, discriminate against any,
Yeah, of course.
type of person. So we try to look at things in a black and white viewpoint when it comes to loan applications.
I just assume everybody lies.
Honestly, great policy.
You'll just find out. Oh, I actually had some of this here, some of this here.
Mhm.
And you just gotta ask a lot of open-ended questions, uncovering a lot of stuff, and then people just uncomfortable talking about money, 100%, and so I get that. But for me, it's more about, hey, going back to your goals, right? What are you trying to achieve for the
Mhm.
future? I'm just your financial GPS. I'm here to build a roadmap out. You're still doing the work to get to that destination, right? And so all you have to tell me is how you want to get there, what car you want to drive, how comfortable you want to be, what speed you're comfortable going at. I'll build out the rest. And so a lot of times, once you build up that relationship, they tend to lie less.
Mhm.
And then one of the biggest advantages I think I love small businesses because they remind me every time, if they use a big firm, right? Edward Jones is a big firm, but when you deal with me, it's just me.
Mhm.
So you don't go to a 1-800 number. When you call, you're getting me. And I'm out there. I'm out there in the businesses, actually teaching the employees and meeting with them. Like, let's say you had a 401k with a big firm, whether it's Fidelity, Vanguard, they're never really gonna come out. They're just there to be legally liable fiduciary. And so, I love going the extra mile just to help gap the holes that they might
Yeah,
have.
absolutely.
Not telling the truth. Well, I have a little bit different of take on it. Well, of course I do, because I'm on a different side of finance. I do have to report to two groups of people that are very influential and powerful. So I have to report to the IRS or I have to report to people like Victor. And those things can make me liable if I'm just grossly negligent. So I do, there's some questions that I do have to ask. There's some things that I have to look at, because like these two, especially Victor, I do have to look at the numbers. Like if you just give me like a spreadsheet or a profit and loss, I'm gonna be less inclined to ask questions, because I'm gonna assume that your bookkeeper's taking care of most of that. But if some numbers just look out of whack, or just, I won't say out of whack, just disproportionate to what they should be, like this number here is like way too big for this type of an expense for your type of business, I probably will call you and ask you, can you explain these numbers? Because like I said, I can be liable for turning in a tax return that's just obviously fraudulent. So I do have to do a little bit of due diligence to like, hey man, that's a weird expense, or that's a lot. But now if you walk in with a box of receipts, there's less of that nowadays, but you still get that. People walk in with a box or a trash bag of receipts and have to filter through it. It's, if I see too many receipts from places like Walmart or Sam's Club, that could be taken either way, or Home Depot. Like, okay, is this for your office, or is this for your living room? So if it's too much of that, I will have to ask questions, just to make sure, like, that it's not, that it's eligible to be deducted. And also, and it's not just from the aspect of me trying to catch you doing something. I'm not the cops, right? I'm not an investigator. You can talk to me and call me about anything. So, but another thing is, like for instance, I love telling the story because there was this guy, I was doing taxes for him, and I kept noticing that he just kept having like receipts for pantyhose. I mean, it was a ton of them. And I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. You're trying to get your wife's pantyhose as a deduction, and that's just not gonna fly, buddy. And I just kept seeing it. And one day I just called him, like, hey dude, what's with all the pantyhose? He's like, oh, I paint streets, right? And I take the paint and I run it through the pantyhose as a strainer. Well, guess what that is? That's a business expense, right? so that's the other reason I'm calling, right? Because like, something might be a legitimate business expense. I need to know so I can write that off for you. And if you don't tell me, otherwise I'm just gonna think, yeah, man, you and your wife are free. So I do have to kind of have that relationship with my clients to get to know them, to where like, once I start seeing certain expenses all the time, I just kind of know like, okay, this person, he gets this a lot, so no big deal. But yeah, but for me, it just, I have to kind of make a judgment call as to what numbers I'm seeing, depending on what the format is, before I just actually make a call. Like if your losses are too big, I just have to like, hey, look, I know you're like in your second year. I know we just got out of the pandemic, but like, how are you eating, right? So yeah, so I do have to ask that question, right? When I see things like that. So I'm not calling the person a liar. I'm not saying that, that they're doing something wrong, but I do need to know, like, why are these numbers like just out of sorts for this type of return?
Awesome, thank you. I love all the fun different answers, different perspectives.
Well, yeah, because we're all looking at it from different aspects. So like I said, I have, like John here, he answers, I think you're more regular than I am, you two guys, aren't you? Yeah, so there's like certain boundaries that we all have to stay within to make sure that we're like ethical.
Yeah. They make me report all sorts of stuff.
What other questions does anyone have, maybe specifically for one individual or another, or all three panelists?
Since you mentioned receipts, is it, I know it's some software, like you can scan your receipts in, do you know, any other tool or way to help kind of tabulate those receipts throughout the year, so you won't have to kind of bog down and just do it last minute, trying to get it to the CPAs?
I mean, you can use the scanner receipt, I mean, my personal preference, this is my personal preference.
Mhm.
My ideal is for you to find a professional bookkeeper and use that person. That's ideal, but I know we don't live in an ideal world. Some of you don't know a professional bookkeeper, some of you can't afford it, and most small business people are, well, yeah, let's just say they may not wanna get one. So, the best thing you can do is every so often, if you don't have a bookkeeper, or you know this guy's gonna be doing your taxes, every couple of months, just drop the receipts off at his office. So at least that way, he's taking like little niblets and trying to enter that data, or trying to deal with that data, rather than just this big chunk on like April 13th, you know? So just throughout the year, just have that relationship with him, where you can slowly over the year, just give him the receipts and the invoices.
You were saying just drop it off, is there a way besides just dropping off receipt, like they were saying at the other place, like QuickBooks, that wouldn't work?
Yeah, you can use QuickBooks, but we're asking, you know, but I'm telling, like ideal, and what I see from a lot of people. So so you could definitely use QuickBooks if you know what you're doing. It's a good
Oh,
thing. If
I've
you,
never used QuickBooks, I'm just remember they were saying something like that.
I guess probably any software that you're using is only as helpful as how often you use it. So if you'll use QuickBooks, that's excellent, or any software, but then if you really need to, if you're gonna have to like wait till like,
I'm
February
not
then.
saying wait till that, but I'm saying what he's saying, are you saying people just dropping off receipts, all these receipts?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I would just
happens.
think somebody would like use something like QuickBooks and then send it over to you, I don't know.
That's ideal. Yeah, that's ideal. I usually give people like that a discount.
Don't people do stuff their whole receipts?
I've gotten trash bags, yeah.
So why would somebody
Oh.
opt to like drop off their receipts versus using the software, other than like just like usability issues, like?
Usability issues, cause sometimes people, like I said, they don't have a bookkeeper, they can't afford one, which is completely legitimate reasons, or they don't think they can afford one. So if all you got is receipts and whatever you save, the most optimal thing you can do is throughout the year, give those to your tax person. Rather than just pile it in on them at the first of the month, at the beginning of the tax season. And now, the one reason I wanted to invite these guys is so you know how we're all related. And so you don't ask the right people the wrong questions. Like Victor's a banker. So he's gonna do loans and things of that nature. He's probably gonna know a little bit about, like all of us are gonna know a little bit about, like starting a partnership or starting doing the legal paperwork to start a business, because we're just in that world, you hear stuff. But you don't wanna ask like John Lee, hey, look, man, can you start this LLC for me and write up the operating agreement? Or you don't wanna ask me that question, because there's CPAs that will start LLCs for people and they will write the operating agreement. Don't do that. Go to an active lawyer. An active lawyer will do that for you. Some LLCs you can start this pretty easy, but if it's an LLC that's a partnership, you will definitely need an operating agreement if you have a partnership. Cause, not to be vulgar, but people change when it starts being exchanged. So you might have a person that you're related to, that's been your friend since the 3rd grade, but as soon as people start depositing checks and writing checks, yeah, your buddy from the 3rd grade, or your brother, or your dad, their personality's gonna switch quickly. So yeah, you need to go talk to a lawyer to set up an operating agreement for you to make sure that everything you're doing is according to that, so everyone knows what's expected of them, because it's written down in an agreement form. You understand what I'm saying? Cause you don't wanna be in year 3 and you guys are arguing about who gets what when the money comes in. You don't want that to happen. You don't want like, who has to pay what when they have to start writing checks or you wanna close the business down. And a lot of that happens because people don't have an operating agreement. So, and don't ask a CPA to write the operating agreement. Ask a lawyer to do that. Do you understand what I mean? That was really the purpose of this meeting, was so people can go, they can go to the right professional when they need it, and find out who those right professionals are. Like, you're not gonna ask me for investment advice. I can give you like some general stuff, but I'm gonna have to send you to John, because John is the expert. He's the one that looks at the stock market. He knows what mutual funds are hot right now, and, you know, he knows what the futures are, right?
Yeah, to add to that, he's totally correct. I mean, we're a team, and we have specific roles for the business. And so, like what he even said, like, yeah, partnership legally is done by the attorney, but I protect the business by creating succession planning or even key leader insurance, setting those up. So, you know, if something happened to one of the partners, like, there's nothing that'll ruin the business and things like that. And so, yeah, lean on to, you may just start with one of the people here as your team for your business, but then lean on to keep growing. You'll need to have all of us working for your business in some form or another at some point.
Not much to add to that. Joe kind
Oh, cool.
of nailed it, yeah.
Any other questions?
I just feel like simplify it, like as a startup or a small business, like, you know, maybe just comment on like 1 or 2 reasons why I would start working with you like early on, you know, in my early years as a small business or a startup.
Yeah.
Like, why should I be talking to you as an accountant in like 1 or 2 years?
Okay, well, one, we're gonna set a good foundation for you. We're also gonna set good expectations, the right expectations. And I would say more importantly, we're gonna make sure that, that to the best of your ability, that your business is protected and you understand what incoming costs are like, are deductible and which ones are not. Just getting a firm foundation on that. And also, the fact that we can send you to other professionals, because they do that quite often, I do that quite often, just making sure you get to the right professionals so you can take care of whatever needs you, take care of whatever needs you have. And also just to keep you from making mistakes. Because I'll use property investors like real estate investors as an example. They have major expenses, like when you deal with property, those expenses are major. I wouldn't even say expensive, those investments are major. And you wanna know, before you write the check, whether it's partially deductible or all deductible. Because tax time, April 15th, that's the wrong time to realize like, hey, that $50,000 you spent, we're not gonna be able to write all that off. We're only gonna be able to write off 3% over a 27-year period. So that does a lot to your mental calculations when you find that out. But if you talk to your CPA earlier or your tax person earlier, especially when you're starting to make those decisions, those big dollar decisions, yeah, it'll keep you from a lot of disappointment. So that is the reason why you should talk to us. You should talk to him because if there's something that's borderline, we can say, well, we can either write it off all now, or we can depreciate it over time. And we say, well, I don't want to pay any money in taxes, so let's just write it off all now. Then you go talk to Vic, looking for a loan. Vic is going to look at you weird. Like, hey, man, you're not making any money. So then we have to go talk again. So yeah, so that's, and I would probably say, and also the same thing with him, before you make like any outlandish investment decisions that you got off the internet, yeah, talk to John first. And just run it by him. You're gonna do it anyway, but at least talk to him so you know what to expect. So I would say the reason why a small business person would wanna talk to me first, one is just to make sure you're structured properly, and also to make sure that you have a right idea of what expenses and income that you're gonna have, or what you should have, and how you should categorize those things, and what other professionals that you will need. First thing I'm probably gonna say, do you have a lawyer? Are you an LLC? Why are you structured the way you're structured, right? I'll ask those questions at the beginning.
So,
That's, and I'll add to that a little bit more. And that's a great question. What you should be looking out for to know when you need someone. Like I said earlier, I think you should have at least one of us that you can have a relationship with, whether it's with us or just someone in this role. But just to ask questions, because a lot of small business owners, they don't know what they don't know. Most people don't know. And so if you're constantly asking questions, hey, this is what's happening in my business, or a lot of us will probably have something value add at whatever part in the business that you have. So like, some of the small businesses that I work with, they really love that I free up time for their HR department, right? Because HR department, they're great at what they do, but a lot of times employees go to them for even their 401k questions, right? Now I free up the time because they just go, hey, just call John. I'm not an expert at that. I don't know how the 401k works. Just call John, right? And so, these different value adds, you wouldn't know unless you ask questions and kind of live through it, or even try to prevent it. And so, is that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was going back to, we work with a lot of small business owners, so sometimes, you guys are their last three stops when they go for funding, or when they go for, structuring their business, or when they go for just trying to get serious in their business. So we always try to just point out like why it's foundationally important for you to start a relationship and nurturing a relationship in these environments. Even if you're not gonna, apply for a loan today, if you're gonna apply for a loan in 3 years, just have that assessment to educate yourself as to what are the things you need to start working on. It's just kind of like legal, we had our legal pitfalls yesterday, and it's almost like you cannot not afford to have an attorney. Even if you get a yearly assessment, I say, hey, this is kind of where I'm at, kind of what I'm thinking about doing, do I have just the bare minimum? If there is some basics that I could protect or cover myself with, like what would those be? And I think just having an assessment from an accountant at least once a year would be super beneficial for a founder, a small business owner, just to even be proactively educate themselves on, hey, if you keep track of these expenses throughout the year, we could potentially use those other deductions.
Yeah, plus, you're talking to any one of us, we're gonna give you like a realistic view of your, financial life. Because, we don't, it's not gonna be a situation where, we're not gonna be cold or harsh or cruel, but it's our job to give you the best advice that we can. And the only way that we can do that, if we, have as much information as possible, and also that we're frank and honest with you. That is the best way, that's the best way that we can help you, is that we're frank and honest, and we give you an accurate picture of what you look like. So that way that, like I always tell people, look, I don't run your business, I'm just there to help you run it. Like, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm gonna tell you where you're at and allow you to make the best decision that you can. So essentially what we are, we're people that are there to help you make the best decision you can. You understand what I mean? Now, if you ask us for advice, I'm pretty sure all of us will give you some. Well, actually, that's his job to give you advice. So, but for me and Vic, that's more of a latent function. But yeah, so the reason why you want to talk to us is we're going to give you that accurate assessment that you need to where you know exactly where you are at a particular time. Because you know what, if you got a job, you're going to school, you got a couple kids, there's a lot of stuff you ain't thinking about. And there's a lot of stuff that you're doing that you don't notice that you're doing. So when you come to me and I say, okay, this is how much you spent on this, and this is how much money you actually made, and that's weird, because this number looks kind of low for what you actually made, where did that go? Well, that's gonna cause you to start thinking like, well, what am I spending my money on? And what does my life look like? And where is my income going? Like, you'd be surprised at how many business owners at the end of the year that will say like, I made that much money and I feel like I don't have any money. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're living life. You're trying to just, rent due, right? That's the pound sign, rent due. That's what you're worried about. And so it does help for you to have that outside professional that's looking at you and making an actual judgment or an assessment of where you stand, so that way you can get an accurate picture. So you can determine like what changes you need to make in your life to accomplish certain goals. Like if you go to Vic for a loan and he says, you're just not making enough money, well, that means you have to change something. That means you have to do something. You either have to spend less or pound the pavement more to make more, correct? So that's what we're there, we're there for.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wanting to know, I know when you were saying, so when you have, I'm not familiar with everything, so when you have an LLC, you were saying, and there are two identities, that's not you. So how do people, go, so do they have a amount of money that they give themselves, or how did that work between you having an LLC and then, making sure you're separate? But then how do you make yourself separate at all times?
That's a great question.
That's more of a lawyer?
No, I can answer some of that question in some way, but yeah, you definitely want to speak with a lawyer about that, but I can answer some of that in certain ways. Okay, you're Joe Schmo, you want to be Joe Schmo LLC, so you fill out the paperwork to become Joe Schmo LLC. So Joe Schmo LLC is different than regular old Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo's a person, right? So Joe Schmo LLC starts making money, right? And you're like, well, how does Joe Schmo, the person, get money from Joe Schmo LLC? Well, he just writes himself a check, or he withdraws that money, right? Just like you would normally do. So, because you gotta eat, gotta live, right? And that's why you got the business, right? To eat and live, also to grow. But it has to be done a certain way to where, like I said, you're writing a check from Joe Schmo LLC to you, right? So that way we know that it is a separate person. There are certain business structures which are more amenable to you actually paying yourself. An LLC that's taxed as a corporation, you actually can pay yourself a W-2 wage, and it's tax deductible. So, but if you're just a regular LLC and you withdraw, you take a owner draw to feed yourself, that's not actually tax deductible if it's just a regular LLC. It has to be taxed as a corporation in order for that to occur. But that is a good question, and that's one you should ask, and that's a very, do you understand what I was saying? Because that was kind of quick.
Yeah, you have to, it's kind of like if you just write yourself a check, it's not tax deductible. There's some kind of way you do a salary.
Yeah, you can do, if you tax yourself as a corporation, and you have to do extra paperwork for that,
Then that's when
you can pay yourself a W-2 wage, yeah, that's when it's tax deductible. But if it's just a regular
straight out
LLC,
check, then.
yeah, if it's just a regular LLC, right, and you write yourself a check, that's legal, it's a legal distribution,
So, yeah.
but it's not tax deductible.
Okay, so there's different kinds of LLCs. You're saying if it's a
Sorta,
regular
yeah, in a way, yes.
Okay, you said it's a regular LLC or is it a corporate?
It's an LLC that's taxed as a corporation.
Oh, okay. So you said, is it under another name or?
No, it'll be under the same name.
But you said it's tax deductible because it's W-2, it's treated as W-2 wages?
Correct,
Okay.
So you said it's a LLC under corporation?
taxed as a corporation.
tax as, is there a certain paperwork you would have to do then, right?
Yeah,
Okay, then once, it's still the name is LLC.
Correct.
But you do a paperwork or form or put in, as a corporate, and then that's become a different one.
no, it doesn't become a different one, it becomes the same one, so like, basically, it's just like you taking that purse and you just paint it black. That's what it's still the same purse, you just paint it a different color. So,
Well,
so an LLC that's taxed as an S corp, essentially it's still the LLC, the guts are still the LLC, but it's just looked at by the IRS a little bit differently, so you can allow yourself to be taxed as as an S corporation or a corporation.
You have to have a little bit more stability to be an S corp because you are paying yourself a regular wage
Yeah,
through
you'll be on a
W-2.
salary account.
Yeah, and so because you're meeting those requirements and you can stably pay yourself W-2 wage, then you're telling the government, okay, tax me as a corporation instead of just a plain LLC. So the percentage of taxes that you're paying as an S corp are different than what you would pay if you were having them file your taxes and look at you as just a regular LLC. So still Joe Schmo LLC, but you're saying federal government, I want you to tax me as a corporation instead of a plain LLC.
So to do as a corporation, you have to have like a regular paying yourself regularly.
Yeah, so you would be an employee of your S corp at that
Right.
point, and you would file a W-2, and you would do taxes just kind of like you would if you were working for a different corporation as a W-2 employee.
So if you're not paying yourself at a regular time, then you can't consider yourself as that.
Right, you have to have a special designation and,
Yeah, actually you can, but it just,
Run into problems.
you don't really run into problems. It's better if you have a certain amount of income and can pay yourself a regular wage. Cause there's plenty of people that,
So
Okay.
you probably wouldn't start off until you start knowing for sure that you're making money to be able to pay yourself at a regular time.
should and can
should
are
and can,
different.
yeah, should and can, yeah. Because here's the advantage to taxing yourself as an S corp. Well, there's no true advantage in finance. There's always a pro and a con.
Right,
So,
right,
so the pro is you don't pay self-employment taxes.
okay.
If you're an S corp, or if you tax as an S corp. The con is, if you don't pay yourself a W-2 wage, and you go for a long time without paying yourself a W-2 wage and no self-employment taxes, when it's time for you to retire, you won't have that much money in your Social Security and Medicare. So there's always something that you have to consider. There's no silver bullet in finance. So, there just isn't.
But I didn't know business had their own social security. I thought.
Well,
You have to get or,
Well, here's the thing, the business, okay, so anytime you pay your taxes, a portion of that has to go for payroll.
Oh, okay.
It's one way or another. So an S corp eliminates that, which feels good for like 30 years. Until it's time for you to retire, right? Because you're not paying self-employment taxes, and if you don't pay yourself a W-2 wage, you feel like you're getting away with something, but you're really not. Yeah, because when you go to retire,
But wouldn't that person have to have like their, instead of a 401k like, I don't know what they call it?
you can do that, yeah, but you have to have a lot of discipline to be that type of person.
Mhm.
And he can tell you that 87% of our population does it.
Okay.
That's a hard number.
Yeah.
So if this was a strategy that she was trying to like figure out she wanted to take or not, is that something you could like navigate her through?
Yeah, that's what we do, yes.
Get some numbers?
Yeah.
Great point.
Good question. If you operate as an S corp with taxes, when is it better to do like a C corp as a whole corporation and change from LLC? Is there certain strategy or timeframe, that you would say, like, instead of staying LLC and getting, benefits of C corp, is there certain benefits like when you can investors like the C corp sometimes? Is there anything to look for if you want to change from LLC and S corp to C corp?
There was like a best reason or time to do it.
Well, I will say this, if it's more advantageous for you to get financing as as an LLC, tax as a C corp, and that's what you're looking for, but I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some other benchmarks that those investors are looking for. Like, they're gonna be looking probably for like a certain net profit or certain income. I mean, once you have that, it probably would be good if that opens the door for you to get more financing.
Okay.
But for just you on your own,
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
have teams, we're doing a boxing and promotional company.
okay,
And I have a pretty great team, so I'm just trying to see the best way to set it up, because I'm LLC, gonna probably do S corp, but I know the vision is gonna be C corp, but I'm just trying to figure out the time frame. What do you look for, what number, or what, kind of time frame would you?
you know what, I would say that's probably gonna depend on like the outside financiers. That's what, yeah, like who's ever's gonna be financing you, they're probably gonna have a lot of sway on when you do certain things.
Okay, so with funders, like funders are different for the investment, the funders, I have backing for funders, but for investors like crowdfunding, do I write it, like my funds is kind of set up how, they won't let me set up how I want to. But for the crowdfunding, the money that's out there, like government, what's the best way I should set it up with the box promotion company?
If it's set up for government funding, you say?
Well, we're doing, you can get funding for like social enterprise, and we also can get like crowdfunding. For setting it up for like the SBA loans, separate for certain things, just for the credit liability, but also investors.
Yeah, that's probably gonna require for us to have like a more of an in-depth conversation, like in the
Okay.
office.
Okay.
But usually for something like that, who's ever writing the check is probably gonna wanna see certain things, they'll probably definitely let you know.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions?
I have one more question, I'm sorry, about the LLC. Now, you were saying that, we were talking about the LLC corporate. What is the advantage of just not doing the corporate and having the LLC?
One, your wages are tax deductible if you're S corp, and two, it's not really an advantage in the long run, but is in the short run, is S corps don't pay self-employment tax.
Well, I'm saying, what is the advantage of not being an S corp, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, if you don't mind paying higher taxes on for your self-employment taxes, it's an easier tax return to do, so it's gonna cost you less in terms of having a tax professional do it. Cause it just goes on your 1040 Schedule C. So it's an easier tax return. And I guess that would be just a couple of advantages. I guess there's less paperwork involved, when doing tax return, but, yeah, I mean, but other than that, yeah, there's really, well, you ask for advantages, I guess those would be two advantages, there's probably some others, but just the way I was taught, and the way that's taught in my industry, that whenever you can, you should try to be an S corp as soon as possible. Or tax as an S corp as soon as possible.
I would just add to that, an LLC just means limited liability company. So that company could be an S corp, it could be a C corp, it could be taxed under the person, as under the Schedule C, it could be a partnership. That's all just depending on the ownership structure and the tax implications at the time. So lots of times an LLC may change from, filing, or when they're 100% owned by one person, a lot of times they're filed under the Schedule C, under the personal tax returns. Then as they grow, sometimes then maybe they add owners or whatever, they may transition to an S corp for tax reasons to save on the total income taxes. Because an S corp's a pass-through entity, meaning that the business makes the money, it passes on, all the profits pass on to the individual owners, and the individual owners pay taxes, so the company never pays taxes. But as the business grows even larger and the ownership structure becomes more complicated, a lot of times we'll see them transition to a C corp for other reasons. So that's why you have a relationship with your attorney and your accountant to help advise you on at what point you are in the business cycle to how you should structure it. But LLC is just company, so that was the main point, was maybe an S corp, C corp, partnership under Schedule C, but it doesn't, not everybody understands that. You don't change to another company, you just kind of change how you're taxed and the name, so, yeah.
And so if you have if you're operating in a different business, then you would have to have an LLC for each business.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, you want to keep your personal stuff separate, transaction-wise, money coming in, money coming out from each business. You wouldn't want to commingle two different businesses for different reasons, for tax reasons, but also the accounting is the language that businesses speak. So if you understand how to read financial statements, you can tell what's going on in the business, where the money's coming in, where it's going out, what's left over. That's the part that's important. It's not how much you make, it's how much you save. So, and then what has that company or that owner done with the profits of that business? That's kind of what we look at, and Joel kind of helps prepare that so that you can understand it, so that you understand what your margin is, which is the difference between what you sell your products for and how much it costs you to sell. So if you're making burritos and you sell them for $10, and every burrito you make after you pay all the expenses, you make a profit of $1. Then you can project how many burritos you need to sell to make 100,000 a year, or whatever your goal is. But if you don't have things set up in accounting, a bookkeeping person, a CPA, and you don't know what your margin is, then you don't know how much to charge. Maybe you need to charge $11 for that burrito, so that you make enough after your expenses for it to make sense for you to stay in business. But you can't do that without accounting, without understanding, what your profit margin is and things like this. So that's where a relationship with an accountant or CPA is really beneficial, in my opinion, at least.
Don't you love how in this event and then also in the previous, they're all emphasizing that importance of all of those relationships with the different professionals. That's what we just had, an event at REI, where we spoke with a banker, an accountant, and a lawyer, and each spoke to the importance of all of these different relationships and being able to go to those folks, even if it is just annually or quarterly with these types of information. So thank you for reinforcing those lessons. It's a lot to process, lots to think about.
Well, yeah, because in our position, because of what we do, we see the mistakes that small business people make a lot. And it's just like, if you would have spoke to me before you did that, I would have told you to go talk to Victor. Or before you spent that money on this thing so you could get a tax deduction, I would have sent you to go talk to John. You understand what I'm saying? Or before you set up this particular structure with your business, I would have told you to go talk to this attorney here so they could set it up properly for you. So just knowing who to talk to. Okay? No one's ever gonna know everything. But the important thing is knowing who to talk to and know what questions to ask. And even if you don't know what questions to ask, if you speak to the right person, they're gonna ask those questions for you, like John said. He's gonna start digging and asking questions to get out the information that he wants from you. So that way he can better assist you, he can better advise you. Do you understand? Because a lot of us are saying this stuff not because we learned it in school through our courses, it's because we see people making these mistakes routinely, right? So he wants to help people. The way I want to help people is making sure that you get to the right people that you need to talk to, so you won't make any bad mistakes, or if you do make a mistake, we can at least figure out how to mitigate it.
And as Vic was saying earlier, like all of these could be an advantage for you, or it could not be. And like the biggest mistake small business owners make is, they talk to each other and they go, "Hey, this worked for me. You should do it too." But it may totally not be applicable for your business. where you're at. So it's like, that's the biggest question, like, hey, I heard this, can I take advantage of it, what do you think? And I'm like, no.
For you, no.
And so, there's no blanket statement, we can't know what's gonna be good for you unless we build that relationship. So it's crucial that you just have someone that you can regularly talk to, at least build someone. And that person may not be the right person for you. And so, but being comfortable finding new people and just asking these questions are gonna be very important for the business growth eventually.
I have a question, it's not for me, but I know family members that, they do contract for, medical drives and then a contract for delivery. How would that do? If they don't need LLCs, they don't.
You said contract, okay, well,
Like,
I'm not familiar with that profession, but I heard the word medical.
Are they like medical drivers, like a medical
So they're like
carrier?
1099?
How do that work? They don't have to do an LLC, right?
It depends.
It depends, but if they run a business, especially something with the word medical in it, and I know nothing about this type of work, but when I hear medical, I think liability. I think people getting sued, I think weird stuff happening to where you want some legal protection. So you would definitely wanna talk to, they definitely wanna talk to a lawyer and explain to that lawyer what they do and how they do it. But making sure you're legally protected, there's never anything wrong with that. And that's what, like Vic was saying, that's what an LLC does. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that person should get one, but I would definitely say that person should talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
Whatever situation it is, it's gonna be different, so there's no standard thing we can say that if you start a
Right,
business, you
right.
need to start as this. You need to talk to a professional to explain the ownership and what type of business you're doing, and they'll recommend how to do it. So, there's no point in, making a chart of this type of thing equals this type,
Yeah.
that's what we're here,
Right.
And we're free, consultants free to do that, so.
A lot of folks could use help with like strategy or business development as well, because, especially minority enterprise development, we don't often come from, generational expertise or didn't go to business school. So are there specific consultants that you all work with or refer folks to for business strategy, business development, to get kind of general formational and structural, nuts and bolts recommendations and assistance?
Sure, there are marketing consultants that we network with. Some specializes in like, if you're a business and you're trying to get noticed on the internet, like how to, search engine optimization is a term, or how do you become present online so people know how to find you. So there's specialists that specialize in that. There's other marketing consultants that may specialize in different areas for different industries that can give you advice on how to grow your business, and how to increase your profits and things like that. So yeah, that's another, just like with anything, as the business grows or depending on what it needs, that's kind of where we come in to hand you off or refer you to the specific person that can help you with that, solve that problem. So there are people for that. It's not us necessarily, but we know them.
And I know Northeast Oklahoma Renaissance is running their state small business credit initiative technical assistance program. So you are welcome to, we can refer you to, I give you my card, we can refer you through that program. But it does cover technical assistance in legal, accounting, and finance. And then as well as OCU Law Collaborative for everyone. That's just pro bono work for small business owners. They can help you with operating agreements, legal structures, and things like that. But yeah, definitely also schedule an assessment with Joel. We never know. I don't know what his services cost, but.
For you, Jessica, free.
But yeah, look into technical assistance, small business resources. There's always a couple programs out there.
I'm one of the consultants for Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, so if anyone needs more info on that, I can get that
Oh,
for you.
perfect. one of the providers.
I'm like, we're seeing how the ecosystem works, y'all.
Yeah.
All interconnected.
Yeah, but that'd be good for us to, provide to you guys as well, is, what these programs, when these programs are available, so you can refer some of your clients to those programs as well. If they need one legal document, or if they need a couple, financial statements, those are things that the program can cover at cost.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions?
How can everyone find you all for services?
Business cards, you can find us mostly on the, if you Google our names or, that's probably the easiest way.
Can you just say it for our YouTube
Yeah,
channel?
for folks online, how can we find you?
Oh,
Or like maybe repeat your companies that you're with.
Okay, Victor Cantu, MidFirst Bank, if you Google that, you can find me, I have business cards, we'd be happy to pass them out to you.
Same, John Lee, Edward Jones, OKC, I think even just Edward Jones, OKC, I'm one of the first ones that pop up. And, I'm in Midtown, my physical branch is 1116 Classic Drive. And, just like everyone's saying, it's free to talk, I only charge if I can help, so.
Joe Pendarvis, I'm the operator of JP Accounting and Tax Services, PLLC. I'm at JP Accounting at Cox.net, and I'm located on 5500 Northwestern Avenue, Suite 144, right there, based off of 55th and Western, so.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. So helpful. And be sure to grab those business cards, y'all. Yes, thank you.